Hi, my name is Evan Liniger, and this is my senior capstone proposal presentation, and the topic is technology in the media landscape. So a little bit about myself. I started at University of Hawaii, West Oahu in spring 2022, and I had transferred over from Leeward Community College. I graduated from Healdsburg High School in 2019, which is in California. My program of study is creative media, and I fall under the general concentration. So, looking at what I'm going to be talking about today, first I'll be stating my thesis statement. Then I'll be going over the objective and rationale for the research I conducted this semester. Then I'll talk about my plans for the senior capstone project next semester. And finally, I'll address the significance of my proposed project with the research I did. So, my thesis statement is: with the democratization of new media technologies, do-it-yourself (DIY) media creators are becoming more empowered. This shift has led to a hybridized approach where new media practices are being combined with old ones, changing not only the product, but also how it is consumed. So, the objective of the research I conducted this semester was to learn more about what technologies are being used in the media industry, and not only how they are impacting the production process, but also the product as a whole. As someone with no professional experience in the industry, learning more about how technology is benefiting DIY creators was something that interested me. I wanted to learn more about the ever-changing nature of the media landscape so I can get a better grasp of the current state of the industry and where it is headed. Having a better understanding will make the transition from school to the media industry smoother. So here are my senior capstone plans. At the end of next semester, I plan to deliver a short podcast series, 3 to 5 episodes, in which I shadow and interview different professionals in the media industry to hear about their experiences with technology and their work. This project would be appropriate for the research I conducted, since not only will I be practicing using some of these accessible technologies, such as digital audio workstations, audio equipment, and social media, but I will also be able to consult with industry professionals who have seen the introduction of these technologies being implemented in the creative process. So now I'll be talking about the significance of this topic and my plans for next semester. So first, this topic is significant because there are wider implications of how the democratization of technology will continue to change society on a global scale. I think we'll see a continued decentralization of media sources and more, which will lead to more user-generated content. We saw how Walter Cronkite used to be the most trusted man in America. Everyone would tune into CBS to get their news from him. But I think a lot of social media platforms have done is set the way for more user-generated content, and people are turning to get their content from those creators. And next, user-generated content will become more important in formulating public opinion in politics and cultural issues. And I think the war on Gaza is a great example. We saw how everyday normal people became reporters and journalists just because they have cell phones and are able to capture what is happening there. And I think it's going to give a voice to a lot of oppressed peoples. And next is the democratization of technology will lead to an increase in misinformation and necessitate more fact-checking. We've already seen it in the past 3 elections, but I think going forward, especially in politics and political statements, fact-checking will play a very big role. And we're seeing automated fact-checking sites being developed just for this issue. And lastly, I have education. So with remote learning and Zoom video conferencing, I think it's going to give a lot more opportunities to people, especially in rural areas or people who are unable to make it onto campus. And I think this will lead to a smaller divide in the education gap in the world. So my second point of significance is the rise in podcast media is creating new opportunities in the landscape. So I think in the future we can see a continued empowerment of DIY creators as these technologies are becoming more accessible and affordable. It's setting the barriers lower for people to enter the industry. And if they have a good idea for a podcast, it's really giving them their voice. And I think we'll see more of a hybridization with traditional and new medias. We've already seen major media outlets adapting to this by using podcasts now that may have not used it before. And next, I think we'll see more personalization for consumers and a more tailored experience. This is a media type that used to be pretty much strictly just on radio, but now with the internet, I think we're seeing a lot more niche communities being formed because of this. So my target audience for the project next semester will mainly be geared towards young people with little to no experience like myself, but are interested in working in the media industry. So this could be 17 to 25-year-olds looking to enter the industry and people looking to combine traditional and modern media. And like I said, current college students with little to no experience. So here is some data for why I chose to do a podcast next semester for the capstone. So on the right is a graph from the Pew Research Center. It was a survey taken in the US in 2022. And it found that two-thirds of adults 18 to 29 have listened to a podcast in the last year. And about half of podcast listeners ages 18 to 29 listen to a podcast at least a few times a week. So the medium of podcasts are a highly effective way to share information and open the stage for more discussions. Podcasts are casual, they're easily accessible, and allow the audience freedom not only to multitask, but also to revisit. A short podcast series can either be binged or followed over the course of its production, giving more options to the audience for consumption in terms of time constraints. Podcasts are quite popular for my target audience age range, with a considerable portion listening to podcasts on a weekly basis. So this is my proposed solution. Interviewing professionals in the industry will be insightful to the target audience and myself, as it will be a firsthand account relative to what I researched this semester. By offering information on technology in the media landscape in a podcast form, the audience will be able to come up with strategies in which to best adapt to these changes. This podcast will highlight the abilities that DIY creators have in the digital age when it comes to using technology and creating their own content. So now looking ahead at what the process will be next semester in terms of pre-production, production, and post-production. So in the pre-production phase, I'll be setting up interviews and reaching out to people I could do the podcast in shadow. Um, a few examples would be Professor Fumai. He's a composer, conductor, and he has a very good sense of the music landscape, and I think it would be great to interview him. Next is Ernesto Alvarez. I was fortunate enough to shadow a pretty big production this semester, and just working with the sound utility guys and the boom operators, I think they know the equipment really well, and I think I could learn a lot from them. And lastly is Jason Lanueva. He was an old coworker of mine, but he is a freelancer, videographer, photographer, and filmmaker, and he's entered one of his films in Hawaii International Film Festival. So I think it would be nice to interview and shadow him to get more of the independent creator's perspective. So once I have those interviews set up, I'll be developing and writing questions before going in to shadow them. And I'll also be ensuring that I have the proper equipment, the right editing software on Adobe, microphones. I might need to buy another USB microphone, transportation in case I have to go anywhere far, those types of things. Then in the production phase, I'll be shadowing them. I'll be asking them questions, taking notes, and forming a rough outline just to help guide the direction of the podcast. Then we'll be recording the podcast, and preferably this will be in person. Lastly, in post-production, I'll be editing the audio, probably on Adobe Audition. This will include mixing, trimming, adding music, maybe even a short jingle before each episode. And during this time, I'll also be promoting this on social media for the release. And then lastly is distribution and posting the final edited podcast to different platforms. So looking at what I hope my deliverable to look like, here's a couple of podcasts that I use for inspiration that have sort of similar subjects. The first one is the Vergecast, and this podcast explores technologies, how they can be utilized, and how they are shaping society. This podcast has a bit more of a consumer perspective, though, and in some of the episodes, they're pretty critical. One of the episodes was about how Netflix handled the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight, and it was very critical of Netflix as a platform in that. And another example would be the Media Show on BBC. And this is a podcast that more generally explores the direction media is headed, which has a lot of intersections of how the technology is being used. The how conspiracy theories went mainstream is a really interesting episode, discussing how different platforms played a role in the spreading of conspiracy theories. That is all. Thank you. And are there any questions?